I'm Becky, and welcome to the third episode of The Ballad of Dena and Andrea, a podcast showcasing murder ballads and conversations in reaction to the story of Andrea Yates and Dena Schlosser, two women who murdered their children in the early 2000s. As I was researching these stories, I realized that their lives had been parallel for years. So I wrote a theater piece about it and a concept album based in the style of Appalachian murder ballads and Americana. Then realized I'd like to have more conversations about these topics. So each episode, I'll tell a bit about Dena and Andrea's story, break down a song, and bring in a friend to talk about their experiences. Please note in this podcast we will discuss postpartum psychosis and depression, domestic abuse, sexual assault, suicide, infanticide, and religious zealotry. Take care of yourself while listening. And note when I use the word women in general, I aim to include anyone who has identified as a woman, female, or femme at any point in their journey. Pastor Doyle Davidson is the founder and president of the Water of Life Ministries, where Dena and her husband John went to church. Davidson was their pastor. Water of Life Ministries is a currently functioning church, just keep that in mind, a church that believed prayer and exorcism would heal Dena from her mental illness. Pastor Doyle preaches about satanic women, like he still preaches about satanic women and how beyond... This just blows my mind because it's an actual thing that religious fundamentalists are teaching, that women are inherently evil. And Pastor Doyle preaches about satanic women and how behind every awful thing that can happen to humans, from hangnails to pandemics, are various demons. The demons are doing it. He said under oath,
"All mental problems, I'm convinced, is caused by demons."
And the worst demon, of course, is a woman, the spirit of Jezebel, who possesses women and they become nasty wives who refuse to obey their husbands. She'll even get into their reproductive organs and mess up childbirth. The day after Dena and John's third daughter, Maggie, was born, Dena tried to commit suicide and was hospitalized. Dena became obsessed with evil spirits. Dena's husband believed the doctors misinterpreted her talk of demons for insanity when they gave her pills. Dena didn't want to leave the hospital, but her husband, with advice from Pastor Doyle, took charge and told Dena she was to throw away all of her meds and refuse further treatment. When Dena's mother tried to intervene, Pastor Doyle said,
"People who oppose me have been known to disappear."
Cool, chill thing to say. Child Protection Services tried to follow up. The agency was visiting twice a week by the time Maggie was 2 months old. But the Schlossers had used up all of the mental health care hours under public assistance for low-income residents. So they had no insurance. So nobody followed up. A couple of days before the killing of Maggie, Dena and her husband got into an argument in the church parking lot. John pulled out a wooden spoon and spanked his adult human wife in public. It was around this point that Dena thought of John as a biblical patriarch. She thought he was planning something big because he bought a clock radio at an electronics store. It was totally Radio Shack. I don't know why I'm protecting Radio Shack. They're gone. R.I.P. But it was on this shopping trip where Dena heard John mention Maggie's little arms as he picked her up and bounced her playfully in the air, And she focused on this image and a particular piece of scripture. Matthew 5:30, "If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell." This scripture rang in Dena's mind as she saw the news about a young boy mauled by a lion in a zoo, a sign of the end times, she thought. It repeated as she heard someone building an ark down the street, an auditory hallucination so real she went looking for the sound as she was pushing Maggie along in a stroller. The scripture repeated as the apocalypse drew closer, repeated until she cut off her child's arms and called 911. On the 911 call, Dena told them clearly, "I cut her arms off." Elvis's song, "He Touched Me," was playing in the background. For hours after her arrest, she thanked the Lord Jesus. She couldn't understand why she was in trouble. She had saved Maggie. She had given her baby to God. The song for today is Lions and Kings and follows a descent set in motion by Bible verses, caged animals, and salvation. This one is for Dena.
Do you still hear the lions roar? coming for her. You took her limbs to save her, so the Lord's telling you what you should do. Matthew 5:30, wrestling in your hand. If thy right hand offend thee, honey, cut it off, cast it from thee. Cast it into hell. Oh, well, what is an arm? When the whole world's under Satan's thumb, these are tests God's given to you. There's a new clock, follow me. There's a new clock, take it, girl. He is building a new ark. Dena, girl, do your part. Sacrifice what you can for the man who touches you. Trust the king knows what you should do. Dena, do you hear the new lion's coming for you? There's Elvis' son and Maggie's gone. The Lord's telling you what you should do. There's a new clock, follow me. There's a new clock, take it, girl. He is building a new ark. The Lord's telling you what you should do. The Lord's telling you what you should do.
The guest coming to you now is a new friend of mine who I met in a writing workshop. She's an incredibly smart writer and talented illustrator. You maybe already know her from Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. She has a graphic webtoon with her writing partner, Audrey Farnsworth, called Scaretown USA, that is hilarious and about female friendship and being in hell. Not because of female friendship. We cover a lot of ground here. Tara will talk about her experience with cervical cancer as well as growing up in an evangelical Christian environment. We jump around these topics from the literal pain of women's health to the allure of church communities on vulnerable people, changing minds about motherhood, and speaking in tongues. We don't. We talk about it. Maybe we do. Listen, we talk about healthcare, but we are not doctors. Please consult your doctors for any medical advice, and please welcome Tara Shue.
Yeah, so in December, I will be getting a partial hysterectomy, which, it was elected, and so far as that's what you do in America. But, it was highly recommended to me by my oncological gynecologist, who I've been seeing since 2021 when I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Okay. So I went through a few different treatments for it. I never had to do like chemo or anything like that. They found tumors in my cervix, removed one, and then they were like, "Hey, we think there's another one."
Oh, jeez.
It really was just it was a really long tumor.
Oh my God! Honestly, I always think of them as like little balls.
I know,
like,
but it was like a long.
Yeah.
It was like a long flat plane.
Whoa!
Yeah, it was like wrapping around the mini donut that is the cervix.
Mini donuts.
And I did get them removed, and I got some MRIs, and things have been pretty stable, besides the fact that the sort of baseline recommendation has always been to get a partial hysterectomy.
Okay.
Because it can kind of jump. There's like a way where a tumor can actually I think it's called skip lesion, where it skips to nearby organs. But yeah, cervical cancer can put you at a much higher risk for breast cancer, for lung cancer, for colon cancer. I mean, it's cancer's nuts. And I went through a couple years of seeing this doctor every couple of months for this procedure that's really just to check on things, but it's always excruciatingly painful. There is no standard practice for medicating people, and if you want to, for pain management, right. They're going up there. Yeah. They're going on up there with what they would normally go up there even if you did have a healthy cervix. But because of my surgeries and my experience, there's not much left there. It's kind of a wound. It's just a very painful experience.
Right. And they just are like, take a Tylenol.
Yeah. I mean, the first time they were like, yeah, take a Tylenol beforehand. It was so painful that I kind of pushed myself away from the doctor using the stirrups that my feet were in. I kicked a stirrup away, probably like freaked a nurse out. I mean, it's unbelievably painful, and it's different for everyone and blah, blah, blah. But this is probably no surprise to anybody, but, you know, like all medical fields, including quote unquote women's health, gynecology, it was misogynist, and it was men who were the doctors, and the women who ultimately became doctors were still learning from texts written by men and male doctors, and perhaps did not have the experiences that their patients did as much as they may have been able to empathize. Supposedly, according to my doctor, who I think is great, by the way, but, you know, she is a doctor. According to my doctor, like, some people don't feel the type of pain that I experienced. But then again, after I experienced that, she kind of made this flippant remark of, oh yeah, one of my patients who has the same, you know, issues that you do, she passed out. And I was like, why?
Yeah, it's not a surprise that that it hurts.
Right, yeah. But yeah, so it's just been a really painful journey. And I am 38 years old. When this started, I was 36. And, you know, the doctor said, hey, you know, just so you know, and you don't need to do this, but our baseline recommendation is a partial hysterectomy, because that almost eliminates any chance of this spreading.
Yeah.
Partial hysterectomy, by the way, is everything but the ovaries. So at the time, I thought, oh, I'm 36. I think I still want a baby. It was still sort of on the horizon for me, or at least something I was deeply considering. And then throughout this process, and not just because of my personal painful experiences, but just because of the way the world works and the way my personal life had developed and everything, I started to wonder if that was really a necessity for me to be pregnant, to be clear. And I really started to realize that it wasn't necessary for me anymore. And maybe it never was. Like, I'm not really sure, but maybe it never was. And I really am grateful, despite the overturn of Roe v. Wade and everything else going on in other states, I'm grateful to live in a state and be the person I am and have the people in my community that I do. Yeah. That can validate that decision.
Right.
And it doesn't come with the baggage that I think it probably once did when I was younger.
We're kind of assumed that we know if we do or don't want kids.
Yeah.
And, like, we have to pick one and stick with it. And, like, for me, that was easy. I've never wanted kids. But there were definitely moments in my life, and probably hormonal changes, where I was like, maybe I do. But because my mind decided, like...
Yeah.
And also, maybe the mind decision is the right decision in some cases. So, like, I wish that people were just a lot more easy about it. There's enough fucking people in the world. We do not need to, like...
Trust me, yes, I agree. I mean, I think something that I learned throughout my experience, so just... Geez, when I was younger, I was never one of those, like, kids who loved the little baby, you know, like, I was just like, okay. I wasn't, like, horrible, but I was just like, okay, I don't want kids, like, I don't want this, right? And even through probably college, I was like, probably not. This doesn't really make sense. I have my own, like, pursuits, and it didn't, you know, fit into that. And it wasn't until probably I got divorced, which was... I was like 31. It was like right after I moved to LA. Yeah, I got married when I was 28 and then divorced in 2016 for very 2016 reasons. Yeah.
Political and oh boy. Yeah.
So
well, good riddance, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. But it wasn't until, and even throughout that marriage, I thought, as you can assume, it was a pretty toxic an abusive marriage. Sure. Throughout that, I thought, oh, I don't want kids. Because in my mind, that meant having a family with this person who I ultimately didn't really trust.
Yeah.
And then after I got divorced and I was single and I was just living my life and really, like, learning who I was all over again, I guess. I thought, actually, I kind of do. So it wasn't until I was like 31, 32. And I think that's maybe what you were kind of getting at too, is like, it's not so black and white. It's not, oh, I always thought I would have this many kids and it would be a boy and a girl and etc. Or like, I always thought that I would have this type of family. Or on the other hand, like where I was when I was like in my early 20s, I was like, no, I don't want kids.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit into my life.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting that it's like, oh, it's either this or that. And it took me probably a year or two to even admit it to myself. Yeah. Hey, maybe I kind of do want a kid. I like understood what my own beliefs were at that point. I understood like who I was. And I thought, you know, in some ways, maybe this isn't the greatest reason, but I thought, well, I had kind of a difficult upbringing. What a great chance for me to kind of change the trajectory of like the generations to come. But gets into like God complex stuff.
Yeah, and like we can do that with community. I firmly believe that.
Exactly. I agree. And no, like, you know, I still love kids and my friends are having kids for great reasons and the kids are going to be great.
Just because you don't want to have them doesn't mean you're anti-children.
See, that's the thing is
like, oh, witch in the woods and I'm going to eat them.
I feel like I am still unpacking all of the reasons why I've made this decision. And I really don't think that we should be expected to do that. I mean, I don't think there should even be any shame in me saying like, yeah, most of my life I didn't want kids. And then suddenly I really did. But then I decided not to.
Yeah.
But like, it's okay. There's no life at stake here. Like
exactly. The life at stake at the moment is yours.
It's mine, right? And if I didn't elect to have this highly recommended procedure done, then I might be at risk of harming myself further or being subject to more cancer or, you know, other health risks. I kind of did the fertility testing, which was pretty low level. You can go really deep with that stuff. But I elected to do that because it was pretty simple. And I thought it would be nice to know. And then I wondered, oh, what am I going to do if I find out that I've got all these great healthy eggs everywhere? And it's like, once it was like, no, you don't.
Little angel baby eggs.
Like, how am I going to feel then? And I think, you know, just like with everything else, I had to be like, okay with what future me would feel. And then, yeah, of course, when I learned like, oh, because I had endometriosis, that was sort of the start of this whole journey for me. Yeah. And that tends to affect the health of someone's eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't either until this year because we don't learn any of this stuff until you actually have to go through it and you have to ask a million questions and like write the answers down yourself. And, you know, it's not, maybe it's just me, but I love to know what's going on inside there. Like, I want to know everything. I want to see photos.
Totally.
Like, and I did, you know, like, I'm like,
yeah.
I want to know. And maybe others don't. That's okay, but
I think the don't thing is totally part of the shame of our sexuality.
Yeah. And because of my upbringing partially, I did not have any grasp on what gynecological health should look like. My mother did not have me go to a gynecologist because she was, you know, worried that I would use it to get birth control and have premarital sex. I mean, that was...
Oh, right. Can you talk a little bit about your upbringing and it?
Yeah.
You label it. I won't label it. You talk about it.
I absolutely grew up with a very evangelical, at times I would say fundamental Christian mother. My parents got divorced when I was very young. I was like 2 years old. My dad's still in my life. Great guy. Not related to the evangelical stuff. Around the age of, I think, 6 for me. I am my mother's only child. You know, my mom and I were living alone together in this apartment, and she wound up at an evangelical church, what they would call like a mega church. I think she jumped around to churches for a little bit. She started to make friends, and about at like the age 6, I think, almost 7, she accepted Jesus into her heart.
Oh man, did she do the whole like falling, like tongues and?
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting thing. So we went to a couple of different churches, and we went to this one mega church. in New Jersey called Grace and Peace. And I went into the Sunday school there, and, you know, like this sort of separate, my mom's in the congregation and I'm in this like little classroom kind of thing. And the Sunday school teacher was teaching us children, very young children, how to speak in tongues. And I told
literally indoctrinating you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and you told.
I told my mom on the drive home, and I think she was like, I think she was even like.
Even she was like,
yeah. And
boy.
I think she was like catching on. So this would have been the 90s, early 90s probably, but she was like catching on to maybe these mega churches aren't great. So we jumped around a little bit more, and then she wound up at another one that wasn't a mega church that just called itself a born again church, which is something they do sometimes. And yeah, she went all in. She really went all in. And she met my now stepfather at this church. He was also divorced, kind of went through a similar experience that she did. I'm sure that they were bonded over that, and they're still married today.
Wow.
And I would say my upbringing, though partially was with my dad, who is like atheist. I mean, he's Jewish actually, but he's not religious in any way, shape, or form. You know, it was like bouncing between that and this extremely suddenly conservative upbringing. And I was excited for my mom at first. Oh my gosh, she's found a husband. She seems so happy. Yeah. And, you know, I was her, you know, only child and just mom and daughter. And, oh, I get to see my mom in love. How cute. I never got to see my parents together, you know, as a conscious kid. And then, it started changing right away. I wasn't allowed to go trick-or-treating anymore. I know. Every year around this time, I'm like, God damn it.
I bet. Oh, my gosh. Oh, well,
yeah,
I'm going to go trick-or-treat and I'll bring you some candy.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, everything changed, and it was it was quite inconsistent, because I think that both of them, my mother and my stepfather, were learning as they went. And this is perhaps a tangent, but my experience with evangelicalism and the experiences of others that I've like talked to who are like me, or like I've read about, it's not really, you know, you got your denominations, right? You got like Protestant, which includes like Baptist and like Lutheran and
Catholic or whatever.
Yeah, and then there's Catholic, which is kind of
which is totally different.
It's totally different. It's not, but it is, right? But evangelicalism, I don't know a whole lot about its history, but I know enough to know that, like, it's not really a denomination at all, right? Yeah. And not all evangelical churches seem to be preaching exactly the same thing. It's kind of like a cherry picking or pick your own sort of, like, whatever works. It's gone through so many changes over the years. You know, you were talking about how, like, the late 90s, there was, like, a real, like, what is this, right? It became like very charismatic and very like...
Oh my God, like show place that you'd go to see punk shows one year. The next year, like 96 was fine. 97, you're all of a sudden at a Christian rock show.
Christian ska band is playing or something,
Like fucking out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have someone do the like lay their hands on me and like fall into Jesus at like a random...
Yeah.
They were like, we're going to go do this fun thing. And it was like one of my punk friends. Yeah. And I was like, sure, cool. And I got there and I was like, this feels bad.
Yeah, they have a lot of, whether they even realize it or not, because I feel like the younger people, it's just like what we knew. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they have a lot of tactics to like get you to think that it's the cool place to be. And that's what worked on, you know, my mom. My mom was a very young mom. She was, like I said, she was 23 when she had me. My dad is 13 years older than her. Oh, wow. She had struggled with substance abuse for a lot of her life. She was even homeless for a little while. I mean, you know...
She's searching for community,
She was searching, yeah. And I love my mom. That breaks my heart to think that was the case for her. And also, I understand and hold quite a bit of resentment toward the evangelical community for preying upon that.
Yeah.
Preying within with an E.
Yeah, but, yeah, exactly. Oh boy.
I see now how it happened for her. She was in a vulnerable spot, right? Much like a lot of like teenagers are when they are drawn into that. You see this community, and then you hear like something that validates your shame. Oh, you are a sinner. That's true. You were born as a sinner. And then you've got this saving grace that can change everything for you. And I don't want to like assume anything because I'm sure it's different for everyone, and I don't even really know what my mom's thought process was, but I assume that it must have matched a similar feeling to a high or something that she was previously finding in drugs. Yeah, basically.
For sure.
You know?
I can remember being at like a church camp and singing with everybody and just feeling like, this is it, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the singing, the music, really. Our church, occasionally we'd sing some hymns, but it was really those like contemporary Christian 90s.
Michael W. Smith.
Michael W. Smith. God, all of the names are blanking.
Amy Grant,
although she like fell from...
She fell from grace.
She had to fall from grace because she made some songs that were like about men.
Baby,
That's for example.
That's why I like her.
Yeah,
like,
she's great. I used to like turn her on, like listen to her on my headphones and like roller skate around the apartment complex.
I listen to it and then make out with my friend's brother. Yes, that's what.
I was not quite there yet. But yeah, so all that to say, yeah, my mom found something in that religion, and subsequently I did, because I was like, this is great. Look how happy she is. She doesn't seem depressed anymore. You know, she seems excited, and it was like a nice thing to see. And also, now that I'm saying it out loud, part of my codependence problem. But, you know, I have other 12-step communities for that. But yeah, like it was for a while, it was great. And then I became a preteen and a teen, and some of my friends from school were in the youth group, and they went to the church, and I don't know, like it felt good to be hanging out with people. Everybody seemed positive. It was mostly like that. And then occasionally throughout that time, there would be a few things where I was like, that doesn't add up. But what do I know? I'm 11 years old or whatever. Yeah. These things they can't coexist together. There's a discrepancy here. There's like, something doesn't work.
Yeah. Do you remember like a specific thing that made you feel that way?
Yeah, I remember a few. Very young, born-again Christian megachurch was preaching about the sins of homosexuality, and they were preaching about it intentionally because the AIDS epidemic continued to, carry on exist. Yeah. I knew that my mom had a friend who was a gay man, like a coworker or something, but I didn't quite get what that even meant. I was too young to really understand it. So that was one thing I distinctly remember. Definitely the speaking in tongues thing. I was like, I was like 7 years old, and I was like, what? I'm sorry.
Exactly. Like,
this is gibberish.
This is gibberish. You're doing a theater game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is improv games. Yeah, I think even then I was like, this seems weird. And based on my mom's reaction to it, too, I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah, like, I'm not completely wrong. My mom's feeling this
right,
too.
Right, yeah. When I was about 13, I was sent on a missions trip, as we sometimes do. It was only in upstate New York. It wasn't that exciting.
Right. But, yeah, good.
And it was, but don't worry, it was still racist.
Still colonialism.
Yeah, still white supremacist. Yeah, I mean, 13 years old, and you're told, like, okay, just, like, go up to people and talk to them. Can you imagine? First of all, I am a petite person. I was a very underdeveloped teen.
Oh my
gosh. A 13-year-old coming up to you, like, on the Washington Mall.
Oh.
Like, being like, hi, do you know about Jesus? I hated it. I hated it. And
a nightmare.
Saw some of my friends who honestly probably didn't even believe it too much, but I was friends with a lot of theater kids, so, they were like, fine, whatever, I can do
I'm
it.
playing this character, and this character is missionary.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, it was less about, do I not have this conviction, and more about, like, if the main part of my faith is supposed to be evangelizing and I can't do it, then perhaps this is something I need to address. It wasn't even really like, no, fuck this, like, I can't do it. I was like, something's wrong. Because
with you.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
But really, in reality, I was like a shy kid who also understood that this was like intrinsically wrong.
Yeah. Wow. But that's religion for you.
That's religion for you.
It'll make you feel bad about you.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing about evangelicism too, or evangelicalism. That kind of did it for me. And then I remember being at the upstate New York one. Honestly, I probably blocked out most of the experience there, but I do remember how all of us kids had to we had like a Bible study every day with the youth pastor, and I
just got goosebumps.
Yeah, it's
youth pastor.
Yeah,
steer clear.
I do have some youth pastor stories too, but I remember we each had to lead one, right? And mine was, I think, the last one, and we had to basically just pick something that was on our hearts based on the experience we'd been having. And I had experienced people from different faiths and economic backgrounds and belief systems and or lack thereof so much in that probably long weekend, I would say, that my struggle wasn't really about, am I doing this right? It was like, is this right?
Right.
Is this okay that we're doing this? And I don't remember what exactly the Bible passage was, but I got really existential with it. And it was like, what is belief kind of thing? Like, I just went like full, I was searching, and I was like reading these passages and saying like, don't you see, like, we make our own belief system, and they were all kind of like, yeah,
like, oh no, her mind has expanded. Close it.
Interesting about it is like I've heard other people talk about their experiences where they, they're starting to doubt their faith, and then the youth pastor comes in, they have a talk with them. But I didn't get any of that. Yeah. They were just like, okay. I think they didn't know how to respond to it.
Sure.
And the youth pastor, looking back, was probably about 30 years old, So like,
it was probably like, yeah, keep talking.
Yeah, like,
tell me your thoughts because I'm feeling them too.
Yeah, like there's no way well, actually, there really isn't, because he eventually got fired as the youth pastor, but that was later, and I still never really learned why, but he stopped going to church too, so.
Yeah, hopefully not too nefarious.
Yeah, hopefully not, though it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, hell no. I mean, that...
Yeah.
It's synonymous.
Yeah.
Like youth pastor, priest, you're doing bad things to kids.
I know.
Like, although I will say, the woman I had as a youth pastor at my church in Mankato was awesome.
It's not that they're all like that. It's just not surprising when they are.
Exactly.
Things really started to unravel for me when I went to high school. So I was like 14. I was like, this doesn't make any sense, right? And I kind of kept going to youth group and church and stuff because I had to. It felt like an obligation. And because I didn't have a driver's license,
right. I guess this is where I get taken.
Go, yeah. But then when I was 16, the pastor of our church that we had been going to for a very long time stepped down because it turned out that he had an affair with the wife of somebody, somebody in the congregation. Yeah. And he chose to step down. And look, this shouldn't be so scandalous.
Right.
Cheating sucks. Like,
you're human. Wow.
Right.
And that's, if it wasn't so hypocritical and like...
Right. It's the hypocrisy. And I think, of course, too, I was 16, so I was like, fuck this. Got my driver's license, and I was like, I'm not going there.
Became a heathen.
Yeah. And that's when I became a heathen. You're asking me when I officially became a heathen.
So, did you go directly to Satanism? No, just kidding.
I dabbled in that, and then no,
Which apparently is great and totally about loving people.
I read that satanic Bible a couple years ago. I understand some of it. I don't, some of it is a little like too materialistic for me.
Oh,
but
yeah, I gotta look into it.
Yeah, you should look into it.
Is your mom still evangelical fundamentalist?
Yes, and that kind of brings me back to what I was saying about how like it's never been very clearly defined, because she would identify herself as such. However, her beliefs have changed significantly, or at least her convictions and her humanity has changed a bit.
In what way? Like, for better or worse?
Most recently, because of the Roe v. Wade thing, I was home visiting, and she was like, well, I just think it's preposterous. Every woman should have a right to do what they need to, and like, what are they going to do? They're going to take care of the baby? She was like basically using talking points that like we're always like keeping in our back, or at least I'm always keeping in my back pocket for when I'm like about to have an argument with her. Like, I'm thinking of her in my...
Well, the majority of Americans want abortion in some way. Mm-hmm. They realize that it is healthcare and realize that women need it.
Right.
How does your mom feel about the decision?
Yeah, so great question. And loaded, but the short answer is I think she's disappointed when I told her that I was choosing to do this, which, by the way, like, this is all based on some other factors too. I did get some fertility testing done, and it turns out I'm not really that fertile anyway. So my mom is disappointed, I believe, with my decision. She didn't really outright say that. When I did tell her that I was going to have the hysterectomy, she cried on the phone, and I would love to believe that part of it was for me. Again, don't know what she's thinking, what she's feeling. Yeah. Love my mom, but she does tend to tell me about her own feelings and experiences with my decisions around my body or what's happening. Right.
Rather than be like, my child is going through this thing.
Yes.
Be like, but why are you not giving me grandkids?
Yeah. I think she does. Again, maybe it's wishful thinking, but just knowing my mom, I think she does have those feelings, but I think that they contradict some of the feelings that she has internalized over the years of, like, even just from a gender perspective. And I should mention, by the way, my mom also had a hysterectomy when she was in her 40s. She had a full hysterectomy because she likely also had endometriosis. However, like, there's no way of knowing because that was 25 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So women's healthcare, she didn't know. She was in pain. They just took the whole thing out. And she went through menopause at like age 43 or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, the fact that I am still of childbearing age, but that I would get rid of the thing that, according to her belief system, would make me female, right? Biologically female, the ability to give birth or whatever.
Your duty.
My duty.
Helpmate. Or
right. Yeah, from the gender perspective of, like, so what defines male versus female? If I don't have a uterus anymore, what do you think?
What are you? Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean her too, right? But she was beyond childbearing age, so I guess it doesn't matter as much.
Toss it in the trash.
Yeah, no, it was just, just get rid of it. Yeah, I think her beliefs have watered down a bit. They've tempered a bit. She has a trans sister who she's in contact with and loves.
Amazing.
Still often misgenders, but she's doing her best.
Trying.
I think just certain perspectives, perhaps her seeing me leave my marriage. I remember her telling me at one point after she was so upset that I would do it, she told me that she was really proud of me for doing what was right for me. So I think what happens is she's just been introduced, like most people, to outside perspectives and experiences and things that they hadn't considered might happen, and her beliefs have changed.
Yeah.
much like the way my feelings around wanting to have children
Oh,
have changed.
Look at that.
My stepfather, however, is full-on fundamentalist, born-again, QAnon, off the deep end. I have recently been able to begin talking to him again, but there were years where I was unable to even really talk to him. I blocked his phone number and...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would it always be an argument with him? Would it always be a...
Yes. And also he's got substance issues, which I don't judge, but it's, it's not something that he has taken accountability for. Yeah. And he's also abusive. And, it all sort of, to me, maybe too much so, but it all sort of, to me, is connected. To me, I see evangelicalism, and I think of the sort of certainty that it gives people, especially white men, when they're given the opportunity to think that they have it all figured out and they know how to be in control. Yeah. They really latch on to it.
For sure.
And there's so many churches and there's so much text and there's so many Bible studies that can just make that belief system more concrete and make them kind of feel bolstered in it. Or
feels better than looking
inward and saying, I have a drinking problem.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm using this to avoid feeling my feelings.
Yeah.
So yeah, it used to be arguments, and then it was, my mom telling me about her experiences with him and me saying, well, I don't want to even. And now I'm like, okay, I can feel grounded in myself and still talk to this person. I used to feel responsible for changing it or doing something about it.
Yeah.
And I still often feel responsible for changing people's minds, especially about fundamental religion. But there's only so much that I can do, it's like I used to feel like, okay, well, these are the people who are closest to me. And so I can enact change with the people who are closest to me. And maybe I have by way of just living my life, but also you can't argue with some people.
No. And it's almost taking that thinking of being I need to be the one to change them is evangelical, and it's just
totally
flipped.
Oh my God, that is such a good point. Yes. There's something that I internalized over the years that it is my duty to make people see the truth.
Yeah.
And now the truth to me has changed.
Just flipped, right.
Yeah. I mean, doing something like this, talking on a podcast about my experience, is probably more beneficial than me constantly sending my stepdad articles about how he's in a cult.
Oh, exactly. Because he's not open to that.
No.
But someone might be like, oh my gosh, that's my uncle. Or that's I'm thinking of getting into that or whatever.
Right. I went through so many things where, okay, no, I'm atheist now. Okay, no, I'm actually very spiritual now, but I don't think Jesus was real. But I do believe that, I have guides and, and maybe I still kind of believe in that stuff too. But, and then
your spiritualism,
my spirit, whatever my spiritualism
your ghosts,
is.
do they talk to you?
The ghosts that talk to me. I don't remember who this was, but I was watching a historian, historian demolishes idea of religion, right? But she was like, no, that didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. Actually, a lot of us historians agree that Jesus Christ was a person that existed. And not that I didn't think that before. I actually kind of assumed that was probably true. There must have been someone that they were basing all this shit off of. But yeah, there was probably a guy, maybe a group of guys, maybe it was a Shakespeare situation where they were if we just see the humanity in everyone, love everyone, it actually makes everything a lot better. And maybe these sex workers aren't bad people, and maybe these,
the meek of the earth.
Right.
People who need help and not just left on the side of civilization to rot.
Right. Yeah. That who were put there by people who are supposedly in control.
Yeah.
And I think I just made made a turn recently where like I still wouldn't consider myself Christian, but I am like, you know what? Jesus Christ was a pretty good guy. He was saying some pretty good things. And like it even helped me kind of find some compassion for my mom, for example, who I was quite resentful towards, especially as a teenager and in college. And maybe even my stepdad, although that's really difficult.
I mean, that's a tough one. That's a lot of therapy
but,
one.
you know, like, it's become more of like a cool leftist progressive, what would Jesus do?
Sure.
Situation.
Why not have
why not?
that as like a... I mean, it makes me be like, yeah, but Charles Manson.
Yeah, that's
like, it
true.
does feel like
That's true.
That's my shit.
But again, like, he and other people are changing it to accommodate their already existing desires to be in control and to seem like the authority, which is like a big one, I think. They love to seem like they know. They're the wisest ones. And, you know, now it makes up a quarter of the U.S. population, and all of our laws comes from that, you know, whether they believe it or not. You know, they know that that's like the biggest condensed base of U.S., you know, citizens identify as evangelical. So
it is frightening.
It's very frightening. Yeah. And this is where I come back to like, oh man, I had this experience and I'm pretty responsible. But it's, I don't know. It's like the information is out there. If I could access it on my own, I don't know why. You know, the only thing that's keeping very Christian people back is the desire to turn over that rock, basically, you know, and perhaps say goodbye to what they assume was their identity and
to the status quo, to the
and their, you know, control issues and also weirdly victimhood. Like they really love to believe that they're
being persecuted.
Yeah.
Just
Heard
like
that all
Jesus.
my life.
Oh
Yeah.
my-
You know, we're persecuted. 25% of the population, by the way.
Oh my God. Oh, it's just mind-boggling, but also like totally makes sense when you look at it from
like a
where
human.
it comes from.
Yeah.
Going back to the like, Jesus is a pretty cool guy.
Not a bad guy. Jesus is all right.
Jesus is just all right.
It's a great Christian rock song.
When you look at the nugget of most of religions and tech, not that I'm a fucking theology major.
Theocracy.
Oh my God. I don't even know their
We're
words.
living in theocracy.
Exactly. I'm learning about it ever more. But yeah, the nugget is like, be good to each other.
Yeah.
Love more. Take care of people who
Find compassion. Maybe you don't know what they're going through. Maybe their brain isn't the same as yours. Maybe mental illness isn't the devil's work and it's just, you know.
in the same breath saying so is medication.
Right. There's a lot of contradictions like that. And no premarital sex. Yeah, the purity culture is like, at least for me, very strong.
I really was like, same age, same experience of like, this is bullshit. But I did make a pinky promise with my cousin to never have sex until out of high school because I didn't want to get pregnant and be stuck in Mankato.
Right.
And I look back on that and I go, no, that was still part of that purity culture.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, or was it? Or did I say, no, this is my decision? And probably a little bit of both.
Maybe a little both. Yeah. I mean, I think we just like as people tend to be like, what's right, what's wrong, like what's the best thing to do, you know,
I need rules and I want boundaries.
Yeah. And I think that's also why people gravitate towards religion and particularly Christianity because there are a lot of rules.
And somebody to take all the accountability for you.
Yeah.
And he'll forgive all my sins.
Even though you were born a sinner, so you know, it's not your fault, but I guess it is because it's your fault that you were born a sinner. I don't really know.
Well,
a lot of contradictions.
It was your fault.
He
so
did.
now,
Yeah.
just keep asking
Thank
for him to get you rid of your
sins.
sins.
It's like when
and
they
he'll take
like start causing problems on your phone, and they're like, "But good news, we have a new phone that you can buy." It's like we can solve the problems that we created.
Oh my gosh! Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh!
Yeah.
It's capitalism, man.
It's
Christianity.
capitalism. It's white supremacy.
It's all the
It's
same.
all that stuff. It really is.
It
though.
is.
Yeah.
And the hugeness of it is the problem, and also like the solutions in there somewhere too, I think.
I feel like a lot of people are echoing this lately, but I do think that our steps towards dismantling, for white people, dismantling our, white supremacist sort of like whatever we've internalized, I do feel, maybe this is a little too hopeful, but I do feel like that's a great step towards it, because
Absolutely.
Evangelicalism is born out of Protestantism, which is white supremacist in that it's like, we need slaves, and work is everything, and toil is everything, and some people are better than others, and some people have more value than other people do. And even though evangelicalism was like supposed to be a departure from that, like it's still
what
a core part of it,
Yeah.
a core part of a lot of religion. Not that I'm a theologist.
Right. We're seeped in it from the moment we're born. We're going to remember some stuff, or at least feel some things generally.
Especially in the United States, where like our laws are so connected to the faith, quote unquote faith of the lawmakers.
Right, which is just,
It's bullshit.
man, the hypocrisy is so
It's
deep
bullshit.
and long.
They're just like, oh no.
Separation of church and state, totally.
Yeah. They're like, but these evangelicals, there are a lot of them. Yeah, me too. I hate abortion too.
Yeah. Will you vote for me? Cool.
Yeah,
cool,
okay,
cool.
great.
All
I'll
right.
just pay for my mistress's abortion.
Yeah.
Secretly, yeah.
Seriously. Have them out loud, guys.
Just
tell us about them.
You know what? Yeah.
Or just like, good Lord, you know what's happening over here on the left? You guys are gonna love it. You can fuck more than one person. It's great. E&M, polyamory, whatever you want. You don't have to shame anybody. You
All
can
you
just
need
have
to do
sex.
is learn compassion so that you communicate with each other. Can you imagine communicating with each other? Yeah.
Oh man,
You can love whoever you want.
it's great.
You don't have to have babies.
Although I do have a very clear image of like our white Jesus being a real douchebag. And definitely being a like E&M on the apps, you know?
Right. Right. Just don't talk to anybody else about it in my life.
Like, shh, it's cool, man. It's cool.
It's cool.
Mary knows. The other Marys.
The other Marys. My mom Mary and the other Marys. I don't know who he was, or if, again, he was just one person.
Yeah. Truthfully, it makes me kind of uncomfortable to have this conversation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm glad. I'm not to stop it, but I'm like, do I still have opinions about Jesus? I can.
I mean,
I totally
you can, and they can change. Like, I don't know, mine might change tomorrow. I think, like, a part of dismantling my relationship with this religion has been a lot of, like, I can change my mind whenever I want. Mm-hmm. The only thing that made me feel guilty about changing my mind was the idea that it would not afford me a place in heaven anymore, or it would disappoint my parents, depending on how old I was, you know. But
oh God, I still disappoint my parents is one of my things. But yeah,
I just feel like having dismantled my connection to this religion just undone my inner Christian fundamentalist person, even though that was so long ago and I was literally a child. But having done that, it was my foundation. Yeah. And having done that, and really, I mean, it took years, but I think it has me discovering that it's okay to change my mind.
Yeah.
And when I was religious, it was not okay to change my mind. When I was growing up, even when I stopped being religious, it was not okay to change my mind.
Yeah. And that's the only way we're going to change bigger systems.
Yeah, it's the only way that, like, women are going to know that something is wrong with their bodies and get help that they need.
Yeah.
Because if someone can't speak up about that and their partner is a very evangelical person, then they're going to be afraid to speak up. If someone's going through that and their partner is evangelical, they're going to be afraid to bring up any issue.
They'll be suffering by themselves.
They'll be suffering by themselves, and then it can have very unfortunate consequences, much like the subjects of your story.
Wow. We did it.
We did it. We figured it out.
We went around and we figured it all out.
I I do find it difficult to have discussions with my mother about, my own reproductive decisions, even though, it's what's best for my own health. I've thought a lot about this. I think that most women's mothers will pressure their daughters to have children. I think that many people I know have mothers who at least, actually not even just women, many people I know have mothers who
Pressure for grandkids?
Or maybe at the very least just hope for that.
Okay. Oh, I lucked out so hard. My
Right.
parents are not like that at all.
Well, remember too, I am my mom's only biological child.
For sure.
She has an adopted son, so
Oh, is that an evangelical thing? Like the fostering and adopting?
it is. I don't think it really is. Well, they would say no.
Okay.
I think deep down, yes. My mother and my stepfather couldn't have children. Okay. This was even before my mom's hysterectomy, but they couldn't have children. They just couldn't make it work. They tried. They couldn't make it work. And so I do think that a part of the religion demanding that we have people constantly being born for this army of Christ,
As many as God will allow.
Yeah.
That Andrea Yates and Rusty were totally
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It's not, I think a lot of people, it's funny, I was talking to my boyfriend about this before, and he was like, I thought he's Jewish, so he doesn't totally understand all of this stuff, but he was like, I thought that was a Catholic thing. And I was like, I think it's just a Jesus thing. Yeah. It's just we need as many lives as possible to evangelize to other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with certain, way back when, it was a little bit more dire. It was a little more like some kids don't actually make it because of the conditions that, But
For farm kids, I think about Minnesota, you just have a ton because they help you on the farm.
They help you on the farm. Yeah, but even that is sort of Christian in a way, because it's there's a work ethic thing connected to it, and you got to toil to really understand who you are and in the eyes of the Lord and blah, blah, blah. So yes, I do have a much younger adopted brother, and I say that even though I would never say, oh, this is my adopted brother, this is with the Royal Tenenbaums thing. This is my adopted daughter, Margot. But he's my brother, but he's also almost 20 years younger than me.
Wow.
So yes, I do think that was part of the decision to adopt him. I think the religion encouraged, you gotta have one with the guy that you married, So yes, even though I would say my mom just says she just wanted more children. And actually, my mom was not raised born again Christian. She was raised kind of just whatever religious. They're just kind of sure, let's go to church. But I think with evangelicalism, it was you can't take away your ability to give life into the world. This is your purpose. This is
your purpose.
Yeah.
It's not a right, it's a purpose.
Right.
It's a duty.
Right. It's a duty. Right. It's a duty. Duty. So yes, I find it difficult for those reasons. Although, again, she's kind of softened a little bit, so it's been a little bit easier. And then I think when I was able to understand, hey, I don't even know if I was going to be able to carry a child anyway. I don't even know if I would have been able to get pregnant anyway. It seems no. I think weirdly, even though this is maybe also Christianity talking, I thought, well, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe that wasn't for me anyway. If I couldn't anyway, and if I went through all of this, perhaps I was not meant to. Well, it wasn't.
Isn't that, if it's the way it is, then that's the way it was meant to be.
That's the way it was meant to be. That's what God wanted for me, or whatever.
Could have saved a lot of money on
I sure could have. Oh my God. Even just the cost of, even with pretty good health insurance, whatever that means in this country, and a great doctor. I mean, she's on the board of the gynecology department at USC. She's very good. And she's got a great bedside manner, and she understands sort of the sexism, basically, that occurs in her field. I could have maybe gotten this partial hysterectomy when I first discovered that I had it, when she first recommended it to me.
Yeah.
And I would have saved myself thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And a lot of pain.
And a lot of pain. And honestly, sorry, I know this is a buzzword, but trauma, it's traumatizing. It's so painful. And as, as a person who experienced sexual assault yeah, when you're getting poked and prodded and it's painful and held into place in order to do it, it's traumatizing. I'm not getting my ovaries removed, and that's great. I won't go through menopause.
That's right. Okay.
I mean, I will eventually. But
they just keep going.
God willing. It just keeps coming. Just bring on another thing. But I won't after that operation.
Right, it won't be immediate.
It won't be immediate, yeah. I still experienced some extreme hormonal changes just as the result of the surgeries and, our hormones are so sensitive. Everyone's hormones are just so sensitive. They change so quickly. And if someone's in there for a couple hours carving some tissue out and it's anywhere close to where your hormones are being created, they're going to be like, what?
What's happening?
What's happening?
Right.
So, it's just been
and just like aging
as
the process is happening.
As the process is happening and wondering, like, is this normal for 38? Or am I also, like, do I have a thyroid problem now? Or do I have a...
Right. Oh, my God. And this is, I think every fucking woman I know is like, do I have a thyroid problem?
And it's impossible to know because
Because nobody gives a shit?
Because nobody gives a shit. Because historically, no one has given a shit. So there are no practices in place to discover that. I have gotten my hormones tested before and I was told, yeah, but this could change in like a couple of hours. And it's true, it can. But there's no resources available. There's no, as far as I know, research into looking into like how to better diagnose people with hormonal changes and issues. Like, it's not at the forefront. And I think, never will be so long as it is deemed a women's issue.
Yeah. And a women's issue is always about, is she or is she not having a child?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, like, why would we study the hormones of anyone over...
Right.
After menopause, who cares?
Right, yeah. Like, okay, so, they're just going to have to suffer. And also, are they exaggerating? And are they
probably
acting
lying
crazy?
because they're crazy bitches.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember
probably
going on
crazy
birth
bitches.
control for being a crazy bitch. No, but kind of, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was 16 and I wasn't having sex, but as I said from the Pinky Promise. But,
oh my God, you turned 16. How dare you?
How dare I? My hormones changed and I wanted to kill myself every cycle. So for depression, they put me on birth control pills. And I don't even think that's a bad thing. It's just was that the only thing we could have done?
Yeah, I know. It's really just to give you an idea of what I've learned in terms of like healthcare advances. So my mother got her hysterectomy, would have been like almost 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. Back then, they didn't know anything about what was causing her so much pain. She was experiencing super heavy periods. She was experiencing cramps when she wasn't on her period. Sounds like fibroids or endometriosis or both to me. Right. They didn't really know what that meant. And the process for even discovering that you have endometriosis involves a surgery. You can kind of use MRIs, but only kind of.
Why can't we use the... Like, when they go up your nose and do a laparoscopic. Like, come on, put that skinny little camera up in there. Kind of like a surgery, like they're going to put you under and like slice you open. Like, it's like a whole thing. And it's like, well, if we're in there, we may as well like take it out too. So, and so there's like a chicken and egg situation where like you can't really get diagnosed for it. And the only reason I was able to understand that I even had anything remotely wrong is through the surgeries that I had to get rid of my tumor. And the MRIs that I got and the blood work. And even then they were like, well, it sounds like you probably have it. It's like that was basically it. God.
And they're not going to know for sure until they take the thing out. Yeah. They take that uterus out and they see. Anyway, just to give you an example, like that was 2 decades ago. They had no idea. They took all of it out and they told her, good luck, you're going to be on menopause now. We cannot provide you with hormone replacement therapy because we don't know enough about it.
Because we did the math wrong. And
yeah, right. And also, the partial hysterectomy is a relatively new procedure. I think maybe within like the past 10 years, my doctor said. Like very recent. And it's only because they only recently discovered that ovarian cancer, and this is for everyone who knows exactly what gynecological reproductive organs look like. But they only recently discovered that ovarian cancer starts actually in the fallopian tubes, which are the non-organ tissue that connects your ovaries to your uterus.
Right. And they don't even really touch, right?
They kind of do, but there's just like a little, like almost like a little like funnel thing, and the hormones sort of like
where the egg jumps. I know.
I
was like, wee!
The egg jumps is just like a fish leaping into the. But anyway, they only recently discovered that ovarian cancer begins in the fallopian tubes, and it actually is extremely rare that cancer would just appear in your ovaries.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you don't have to get your ovaries removed if you have cancer on your uterus or in your cervix or in the vagina or, like anywhere else. You just need to get everything with the fallopian tubes taken out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they didn't even know that until kind of recently.
Yeah. Well,
and like, we are always like, wow, they know everything in medicine now, right? Like, it feels like they do, right? Like, they created a vaccine in a year for COVID, oh my God. But, when there's no funding and resources and care and attention towards women who are in pain and may actually have cancer, they're not going to learn that. It's not going to be a priority for them to even investigate that.
Black maternal death rates.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, how is this a thing? We are fucking
we supposedly
country.
know, right? Yeah, we supposedly know so much, and no, I mean, they don't know that much, and there's no real reason for them to. I mean, because it's
Get ready, there's a whole new crop of women with menopause who are going to be pissed and screaming.
Yeah, right. I do think it's improving, but, I can only speak for myself as a white woman, white cis woman. So it's definitely opened my eyes even further to the disparities in healthcare. And
I do think that an intersecting fight with trans community and hormones and stuff, I think that is really a way for us to find common ground and fight together. I
agree. Because it's made me feel a lot more. Obviously, I've always been supportive of my trans friends, and
for sure.
But it's made me feel like at the end of the day, like the struggle to be like seen as human is pretty universal, and like. I am more connected to, I shouldn't say more connected because I'm not connected to it, but I understand the struggle for trans youth and people in general more because of my own experience with my quote-unquote reproductive organs. Yeah. Which also, that's another thing. I haven't found like a word for it yet. Like, they say women's reproductive organs, or I'm basically just sitting here listing them all. I'm like, uterus, cervix. Yeah. Like, I don't even know what to call that because... we still call it women's reproductive organs, which
is like they're
gendered and like I'm not reproducing.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. I had not ever thought about it.
Yeah, of course I have, because I'm constantly thinking about this shit and talking about it, which I'm so happy to talk about it.
That is a relief to me.
I'm glad. I would not call myself a Christian, though, just for the record.
We got it on record.
And oddly also feel a stronger connection to my Jewish faith just because of my ancestral background and everything. First of all, I'm anti-Zionist.
Right.
I just want to say that.
And
I don't have any ancestors in Israel, nor do I feel any strong connection to it, nor does my dad believe that a genocide against people who are existing there is right. Anyway,
yes, that is happening right.
I don't want to. Unfortunately, I have to make a note that I don't conflate my Judaism with Zionism.
Yeah.
However, it is very common for people of Ashkenazi Jewish descent to carry what's called a BRCA gene mutation that predisposes you for cervical, ovarian, and breast cancer. Oh. And both my my dad's sister, and my grandmother, my dad's mom, died of breast cancer. And so I actually had to also go through the process of getting DNA tests to find out if I too have the BRCA gene mutation. I have a slight mutation of something that's related to it. Thankfully, it's not the full thing, but it is a very common thing, and it is an easy, if you are in any way of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, an easy way to say, hey, send me that saliva test and get it done for free, because it's currently one of the best ways to mitigate and predict cancer, breast gynecological cancer.
And you don't cervix?
Yes.
Cervical?
Yes. So they are related. So if I say were to get uterine cancer, it could have spread to my breasts.
Sure.
And not just people of Jewish descent can carry this BRCA gene mutation, but it is very common amongst people.
No,
that's my...
I am so glad you said that.
That's my spiel. Yeah, that's my...
Is there an organization or an artist or a podcast, anyone that you would like to shout out that's doing good work?
I love the account Shout Your Abortion.
Yay! Oh, I love that. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
they're
work
great.
with them.
Oh, do you? Oh, good. Oh, okay. Okay, so great. Yeah. I love them not just because, obviously, like, for the abortion stories, but I have read similar accounts to my own where people, like, learn that they had cancer in the process of, you know, getting an abortion or finding out if they were pregnant. And I think just like Planned Parenthood provides healthcare beyond abortions, like, I think that most organizations that advocate for healthy abortion are seeing it from the big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's on my mind right now. Also, there are evangelical, they're called, groups. They're mostly on Facebook. I don't love Facebook, but I did join one. When I discovered this word evangelical, it rocked my world. I was like, oh my God, look at all of these people with similar experiences to mine, with slightly different experiences to mine, but still ultimately traumatizing experiences. So yeah, I'm part of a Facebook group. It's kind of interesting, but even just like looking them up on Reddit or whatever, or I'm sure there are podcasts also that talk about it. It's just very validating to hear if... Ex-evangelicals, very cute. Yeah.
That is wonderful that those groups exist. So, well, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
There are additional clips from this episode that are worth your ears. A conversation about HPV and one about Christian surfers, and those are both at the Becky Poole Patreon page, which you can find in the show notes. If you'd like more information on postpartum psychosis and depression, please go to postpartum.net. There are additional links to mental health, safety, and reproductive resources in the show notes here, as well as links to information mentioned in the show. You can listen to the full album of songs for The Ballad of Dena and Andrea on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you listen to your music. Songs were written by me, Becky Poole, and produced by award-winning multi-instrumentalist, folk musician, and incredible producer, Abby Posner. Find her at abbyposner.com. Theme also composed and played by Abby. Special thank you to Evan Mosier for sound sweetening, Julie Rosing for help producing, and to Andrew and the team at Voice Tracks West in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for listening, and please join me in future episodes as we explore more themes in The Ballad of Dena and Andrea.